I wanted to go outside, I wanted to go to the library and have a look at some art books. Why not come with me to look at the art books at the Malmö Public Library? One, it's a place that I really like, and two, get some new input and sketch. It's a beautiful library. One half of it is an older building and it has a modern expansion, which is a huge glass cube. Beautiful views, it's overlooking the park, so I really like spending time there. I walked in there kind of without any particular goal in mind, let the mood of the day and the displays speak to me. And the great thing about doing that is that you always learn something new. Just kind of hoping that I would feel like sketching and find a quiet corner, because I don't want to bother anyone with having my camera out. I hadn't heard about Greta Knutson, modern painter, Swedish. I've talked previously about texture. The choices of color and composition obviously is something that draws you in, but something that makes me stay and really look at a painting is texture. So I really liked Greta Knutson in that regard. There was a lot of great texture in all of her work that really inspired me. It was really interesting to kind of get an idea of this artist who had been active, like been painting all of her life, and see how she moves in and out of different styles, both along with the times, but also like being experimental. There's a seagull above me. I'm sorry. Being experimental in her work. That's something that brings me a lot of peace, I think. Looking at other artists, discovering from earlier periods, because I think we are so stuck in the here and now. Our time is moving so quickly, whereas, 50 years ago, 100 years ago, someone could withdraw for a long period and then show up with a new style and say something and really let time do its work, like in terms of style, technique, topics, and things like that. We don't really have that luxury these days. It's kind of on a year by year basis, if not faster than that, season to season. And I'm trying to remind myself that it is important to let things breathe, which is what I'm trying to implement more in my work. I moved on to this Japanese artist who was making very cool kind of pop art variety of work that seemed inspired both by manga and traditional Japanese art. This book felt like a museum book, like a museum collection, because it had more references to traditional artists than it had images of the artist's Murakami's work. Still interesting, it's just that, when it feels like an extended brochure type of thing rather than a dive into a specific artist's work. It's fun to see how people approach their culture and their tradition and adapt it to modern techniques, sensibilities, I guess, dialogue with the past, acknowledging where you're coming from. The next book I looked through was a collection of different artists who work with found materials, things that you might consider trash, things that aren't necessarily art supplies, which doesn't actually apply to me and my illustration. I always find it really interesting to see what other people see in unconventional materials. It was a huge variety of things in this book, but my favorites were these two artists who worked with wood in different ways. One of them kind of looks like bark, painted in different ways, and some really cool installations with that. And the other one was a Korean artist who made sculptures out of stacks of wood that had been polished in different shapes. You could see the stacks of wood in the shape. Probably my favorite in the book. It was just really cool. Again, does not apply to my work, but there's something about the ingenuity of other artists that I also find really inspiring sometimes. Just quickly looked in this book on decorative monograms, just because it's an interesting art. At some point I wanted to do my logo like this. Anyway, I was searching for my initials and struggled to find them, only to realize that the J and E section was kind of on the smaller side. The last book that I filmed was this book inspired by, I think it was a V&A exhibition, the Victoria and Albert Museum in London, an exhibition inspired by Alice in Wonderland. The first half of this book was illustrations by an artist named Christiana S. Williams. These kind of Victorian-inspired collages almost, scenes from Alice in Wonderland. Yeah, they look like Victorian illustrations, along with these really psychedelic colors. I think this is a good example of looking for inspiration outside of your own style, because it's always fun to see someone else's point of view of things. That makes me excited to make my own art. I spent a long time looking at Christiana's illustrations. And then the second half of the book was just kind of a compilation of Lewis Carroll's early illustrations for the books, some advertisement, other works that have been inspired by this story. There was this one painting in Greta Knutson of figs. I really liked that, so I decided to sketch some figs. Really like the color scheme on a ripe fig, so I really leaned into that. And then I drew this tree outside the window. And then it was time to leave. Isn't this such a flattering angle? I didn't bring a tripod with me. I just don't want to bother people in the park, you know, with like a whole work setup and stuff like that. I don't know if you can hear that, but the birds are going crazy. It's a really lovely day. Anyway, I've left the library now and I'm sitting in the park with a coffee that I bought on the way, looking at art. Another modern artist, Greta Knutson. Like when we think of the early 20th century, there's some very particular styles, significant movements, and I feel like a lot of artists of that era move through them in similar ways until they land in their own kind of style. But it was interesting to see those kind of pastels, abstract or cubist influence from earlier in her career and then move into something experimental that almost was a little bit Hilma af Klint kind of towards the end of her life. Even though she didn't want to be associated with surrealists, she did draw dream-inspired paintings. Some art critic has referred to as witch pictures, and I thought that was really interesting. I'm wondering if that is because she was a woman. Just really cool to learn something new. A little bit sad that there wasn't more images of those witch pictures. They were miniatures but not full spreads like with her earlier work. I'm guessing that her earlier work is what is most attractive to people. I'm gonna drink my coffee and walk through the park. Hopefully you feel inspired to visit your local library. It's an amazing concept. They need your support. If they don't have a book that you want, you can request it and they can borrow it from other libraries. It's something not a lot of people know. I work in a library. In case I don't check back in, I want to thank you for watching. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your week and I hope to see you back here soon. Take care.